If I had to roll myself to your motherfucker house in a wheelchair, if I lose my kidney, I'ma roll myself to your house, knock on your door, and I'ma shoot you goddamn in your fucking face, pussies. Yeah, for real, man. I don't give a fuck. Family.
The video starts with a man, his face twisted with fury, eyes burning with an unrelenting rage. His voice is sharp, venomous as he spits out his threats. He seethes, almost daring anyone to doubt his intentions. But this isn't just a man's rage. It's a promise he would make good on. Just hours later, Tamika Pullins had been living with the fear of this moment for months. She thought she was free. She thought a piece of paper, a restraining order, could protect her. But on June 14th, 2025, her worst fears came true. In the middle of the afternoon, while the rest of the world was going about their day, the terror she'd been trying to escape came crashing through her door. It was 2:48 p.m. when the first shots rang out. The call to 911 came in, chaotic, desperate, the words barely making sense over the panic and fear. The dispatcher heard the tension in the background, the rising terror. Moments later, police arrived at the Forest at Columbia Apartments in DeKalb County, Georgia. What they found inside wasn't just a crime scene. It was a tragedy, one that could have been avoided. Inside that apartment, Tamika Pullins and her 7-year-old niece, Dior Scott, lay lifeless. Gunshots had stolen their lives. A home that should have been a sanctuary had turned into a crime scene. The once peaceful apartment, the place where Tamika had hoped to find peace, now soaked with the blood of her dreams. 2 innocent lives had been taken. And all the while, the promise made on a Facebook Live video just days before was now reality. William Lewis Almond had done exactly what he said he would. But the question, how did we get here? What led to this? And could this have been prevented? The answers are more chilling than expected. Tamika Pullins was born in 1995 in Stone Mountain, Georgia, where her story began in the quiet shadows of a working-class neighborhood. Growing up, life was never handed to her on a silver platter, but Tamika had something far more enduring: resilience. From a young age, she learned that hard work, responsibility, and a deep sense of family were the building blocks of a life well lived. Her parents taught her that success wasn't about what you had, but how much you were willing to sacrifice for the people you loved. In a world that often seemed to demand more than it gave, Tamika always found ways to rise above. As she got older, she developed into the peacemaker of her family, the one everyone turned to when tempers flared, when tensions ran high. She had an uncanny ability to smooth over disagreements with a smile, her voice gentle but firm, guiding her loved ones back to calm. No matter the challenge, Tamika was there, always ready to lend a hand. Her loyalty to her family was unwavering, a constant in a world that seemed to change every day. To make ends meet, Tamika worked as a security guard for Knorr and Associates. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was honest, and it provided for her. She didn't mind the long hours or the extra shifts. She did it all for her family, for the ones she loved most. She put them first in everything she did. It wasn't easy, but it was the life she had chosen, and she gave it her all. There were no complaints from her, even when exhaustion started to creep in. She made sure her family had what they needed, always asking for nothing in return. People who knew Tamika often described her as the kind soul who would go out of her way to make others feel heard and cared for. Her friends would tell you that she had a warm laugh, a quick wit, and an easy way of making anyone around her feel safe. They often called her the one who kept everyone together. When things got hard, she didn't back down. She fought for the people she loved. Her loyalty wasn't just something she said. It was something she lived every day. One of the people she loved most was her 7-year-old niece, Dior Scott. Tamika's bond with Dior was something special, deep and genuine. From the start, Dior was her light. Their relationship wasn't just that of an aunt and niece. It was the kind of relationship people strive for, built on mutual love and trust. Tamika was a second mother to Dior, sharing in the little joys of life. Bedtime stories were their ritual, with Tamika always making sure to tuck Dior in and talk about their day. They would spend hours on Saturdays watching cartoons, braiding hair, and laughing together. Dior looked up to Tamika, not just as an aunt, but as a role model, someone who would always be there to guide her and show her the way. She was completely unaware that the safety she felt in Tamika's arms would soon be ripped away. She was just starting out in life. There was so much ahead of her, so much potential, so many dreams waiting to unfold. But as fate would have it, the world would rob her of the chance to grow up, to see her dreams come to life. Tamika gave everything for Dior, her safety, her peace, her joy. She promised to protect that little girl from the harshness of the world, just as she had always tried to protect everyone she loved. But there was one thing Tamika could never protect her from: William Lewis Almond. When Tamika Pullins first met William Lewis Almond, she thought she had found someone who could give her the stability she had always longed for. He was older, in his late 30s, and carried himself with the kind of quiet confidence that Tamika believed signaled maturity. He spoke about the lessons life had taught him, how he had learned from his past mistakes, and how he was now ready to build something solid, something lasting, for someone like Tamika, who had spent her whole life trying to build a stable future. This sounded like the perfect partner. He was affectionate, charming in public, always the one to hold her hand at family gatherings, to offer warm smiles and photographs. His words were always kind, reassuring. He seemed to be everything she needed. The age gap between them, several years older than her, at first appeared to be an advantage. It seemed like he had more life experience, that he had matured, and that he could guide them both toward the future Tamika so desperately wanted. At first, it was comforting, the way he made her feel like she had someone who could protect her and provide. He was, in her eyes, the one who would help her create the kind of stable, loving home she had always dreamed of. But as time passed, the cracks began to show. What initially seemed like maturity soon revealed itself to be something far darker: control. He wasn't just guiding their life together, he was dictating it. Slowly but surely, the affectionate gestures turned into emotional manipulation, and the caring words became empty promises. He wasn't interested in partnership, he wanted domination. Tamika, the woman who once carried a bright, open energy, began to change. Her laughter, once effortless, became less frequent. She grew quieter, more withdrawn. What was once a strong, vibrant woman was now a shadow of herself, constantly questioning her worth. Her family started noticing it too. They could see the shift in her, the way she had become distant, how she hesitated before speaking, how the spark in her eyes had dimmed. William's need for control didn't stop at his emotional grip. His insecurities, hidden beneath a mask of bravado, began to bubble to the surface in disturbing ways. He started to monitor her every move. He questioned where she went, who she spoke to, and more disturbingly, he began to limit her interactions with her own family. He tried to isolate her, making her feel like she was dependent on him for everything: her happiness, her sense of security, even her self-worth. And it didn't end there. His possessiveness started to escalate. William no longer saw Tamika as a partner, but as his property. He became obsessed with controlling her every action. If she went out with friends, he demanded to know where she had been and why she hadn't checked him more often. He grew increasingly paranoid about her social media accounts, checking her phone messages, her posts, and her interactions with others. Each time she spoke to a family member, he would find some reason to accuse her of betrayal, making her feel like she was walking on eggshells in her own home. But to the outside world, William's image remained intact. They appeared like the perfect couple. On social media, William posted photos of luxury, his new car, his designer clothes, trips they took together. But the reality was far different. Behind closed doors, he was nothing like the man he portrayed online. He wasn't the affectionate partner Tamika thought she had married. Instead, he was a man who was constantly playing a game, trying to present himself as someone with wealth and power, even when his financial reality couldn't have been further from the truth. He would flaunt expensive tastes, talking about high-end items, like they were the key to his identity. He even boasted about whipping someone with a Gucci belt. It was an attempt to project an image of success and status, hiding the fact that his need for control was suffocating everything around him. And yet, she tried to make it work. She told herself that maybe things would get better. But deep down, she knew she couldn't keep sacrificing herself to someone who didn't see her.
This is my last one. Let me tell you something, little girl. Boy, I've been a grown man. But I will fuck you, your brother, and your boyfriend the fuck up, man. Just give me the address, man. I swear to God, I'm gonna show y'all some pussies. I swear to God. On that thing around God's head, boy. I'm talking about, I don't give a fuck, boy. Boy, you gonna sit there and talk to me any kind of way? Boy, I don't care no more. Boy, it's gonna be your last time ever disrespecting somebody. You and your fat ass brother, boy. And calling me and my family out that name. Come on, man. Come on, man. Slaughter gang shit, bitch. I'ma fuck one of y'all. Boy, swear to God, I ain't gonna do no more talking. When I see you, it's on sight.
But even as she reached her breaking point, the decision to file a restraining order was not an easy one. Leaving him, even legally, felt like a monumental step. She knew that doing so would push him further into rage, but she had no other choice. But Tamika had finally done it. She had filed for the restraining order and taken the first step toward freedom, though she didn't know it would come at such a steep cost. The legal system was supposed to protect her. The restraining order was meant to be a barrier between her and William, a legal shield that would ensure she would no longer have to live in fear of him. The paperwork was done, and Tamika thought that it was enough. She believed that the law would step in and keep her safe, that there were rules in place to stop someone like Ahmed from crossing a boundary he had no right to cross. However, as her mother, Nikita Bruce, later shared, the family quickly realized that no paper, no matter how official, was going to keep William Ahmed away. He had already shown his rage. He had already made his threats loud and clear. And as Nikita later said, "We begged for help. We tried to protect her, but no one acted fast enough." Ahmed's response to Tamika's brave decision to leave was one that nobody saw coming, or perhaps, in hindsight, everyone should have seen. His ego was bruised. He could not accept being rejected, especially not by the woman he thought he still controlled. His response wasn't one of remorse or introspection. It was an outburst of violent rage. He took to social media, posting disturbing videos and rants filled with threats. His words were clear. There was no ambiguity, no second-guessing. "I will come for every one of you," he declared.
Allen says these police reports filed by his daughter show that. The first one dating back to New Year's Day this year. In it, police describe Arnold getting upset when his estranged wife did not laugh at his jokes, striking her with the gun and cutting her forehead. Another report months later in April detailing an incident when Arnold allegedly pushed open a bedroom window.
He was adamant that he would make Tamika and her family pay for what he saw as a betrayal. And in one particularly chilling video, he threatened not just Tamika, but her family as well. He said he would kill anyone who stood in his way. "I'll pop every kid in that house. I don't care who it is," he raged. And he meant it. So the question remains, if she had received protection in time, if authorities had acted faster, would Tamika and Dior still be alive? June 14th, 2025. The day that Tamika Pullins had feared for so long had finally arrived. It was a day like any other. Or at least that's how it seemed on the surface. Tamika had begun anew. She had taken the steps to rebuild her life, to free herself from the suffocating grasp of her estranged husband, William Lewis Ahmed. After leaving him, she had found a small sense of security in her own apartment at the Forest at Columbia Apartments in DeKalb County. It was her sanctuary, the one place where she could feel safe, away from a man who had once promised to be her partner but had become her captor. In the apartment, Tamika lived with her 7-year-old niece, Dior Scott. Dior had been living with her since the separation, the two of them building a life together. Then, on that fateful Friday afternoon, it happened. William Ahmed showed up at Tamika's apartment, just as he had said he would. It was 2:48 p.m. when the first gunshots rang out, the sound of them echoing through the apartment complex, carrying the terror of what was unfolding. Tamika had tried to hold her ground, to keep him away, but Ahmed wasn't going to stop. He had already threatened her, and now, in his mind, there was nothing left to lose. Witnesses inside the apartment would later recall the horrifying scene. They had seen Ahmed approach the apartment, demanding to be let in, but when Tamika and others inside refused, the violence escalated quickly. Ahmed, in a moment of pure rage, smashed a window to gain entry into the home, and then, without hesitation, he opened fire, shooting through the broken window with deadly precision. The sound of the gunshots was deafening, a sharp, terrifying noise that sent those inside the apartment into a panic. Tamika and Dior, the two people he had promised to hurt, fell to the ground. The shots were quick, but the damage they did was irreversible. Tamika, who had fought so hard to protect her family, was now fighting for her life, but it was too late. Dior, a little girl who should have been playing, laughing, dreaming, was also struck down, her life stolen in an instant. Inside that apartment, the world seemed to stop. Those who were there, watching in horror, could do nothing but scream. Then, just as quickly as the gunfire started, Aman fled. He didn't stick around to see if his victims were still breathing. He didn't stop to look at the damage he had caused. He ran, on foot, fleeing from the scene of the crime. The aftermath of the shooting was a scene no one in the DeKalb County Police Department would soon forget. The first officers arrived at the Forest at Columbia Apartments, their hearts heavy with the knowledge of what they were about to witness. They had already received the 911 call, the one that had described the horrific events unfolding inside. But no amount of preparation could have shielded them from the gut-wrenching sight awaiting them. It wasn't over yet, though. The manhunt began immediately, with police swarming the area. Officers canvassed the complex, knocking on doors, gathering witness statements, and searching for any clues that could help track Aman down. They knew he was armed and dangerous, and they weren't going to rest until he was caught. The tension in the air was unbearable as neighbors, still in shock, huddled inside their homes, terrified of what would come next. The police didn't waste time. They immediately started piecing together the events that had led to the shooting, and soon enough, they identified William Lewis Almond as the suspect. His face, his name, his threats, everything had led to this moment. And now, the man who had promised violence had delivered on his word.
Police say William Almond gunned down Tamika Pullins and Dior Scott. Dior was just 7 years old. Right now, this man, William Almond, is behind bars. This after police say Almond shot and killed his estranged wife and his young niece.
We believe this to be a domestic incident, not a random act.
Investigators say officers found Tamika Pullins and Dior Scott inside a unit at the Forest of Columbia Apartments on Columbia Drive. Dior was just 7 years old. Police say neither of them were breathing. Officers tried to revive them, but it was too late.
Both victims succumbed to their injuries on scene.
The gunfire broke out around 2:48 Friday afternoon. Investigators say Almond was trying to get into the apartment. He was not allowed in. So police say Almond broke a window and fired several rounds. The bullets hit Pullins and Dior.
This is something that is completely senseless. Not only do we have 2 lives tragically lost, but one of them a child who's just getting started.
Investigators say Almond ran, but police caught him later on Friday. DeKalb CEO Lorraine Cochran Johnson put out a statement, quote, "As your CEO and a mother, I grieve alongside our community and extend my deepest condolences for all those affected." Almond is being held at the DeKalb County Jail. At DeKalb County Police Headquarters, Christopher King.
It wasn't long before the authorities found him, capturing him without resistance. He didn't put up a fight. He didn't try to run anymore. The man who had spent months threatening his wife and her family had been caught. But even in the face of his capture, the damage was done. 2 lives had been lost, and the family Tamika had fought to protect would never be the same again.
Try. Because it's hard.
A mother grieves the sudden loss of 2 beloved souls, showing us a picture of her daughter, Tamika Pullins, who died trying to protect 7-year-old Dior Scott.
I'm trying to protect her from all of this. But now we see some people don't want to let go.
Police say Nikita Bruce's daughter and little Dior are victims of domestic violence. Our first alert chopper flew over the significant police response shortly after the shooting happened at this apartment complex off Columbia Drive Friday afternoon. DeKalb County police say Pullins' estranged husband, 48-year-old William Almond, tried to enter the apartment. When he couldn't get in, police say he broke a window before shooting inside, killing both Pullins and Scott.
If you are in a domestic violence, cut ties with them, block them, everything. My daughter was reaching out for help. And I shouldn't be saying it, but the cab let her down.
Police say Allman immediately ran from the area before being caught and arrested hours later. His arrest Friday night provides the family with little comfort.
Trying to be strong for them and the grandkids.
And in a moment of great uncertainty, Bruce will always carry this memory of the two young lives cut short.
The way how they smile and always checking up on me. Don't knock on my door, but bust in my door. Hey, Study, you good? You all right? I'm going to miss that. So, but they was good people.
Ahmed's escape didn't last long, but the damage he inflicted, both physically and emotionally, would be felt for the rest of their lives. And while he was arrested, the questions lingered. How could the system have failed Tamika and her family when the warnings were so clear? Ahmed was taken to the DeKalb County Jail. There, he was booked on charges of malice murder, aggravated assault, and several other crimes, all stemming from the brutal shooting of his wife and niece. The legal proceedings would follow, but for now, he was behind bars, facing a future that was as bleak as the lives he had torn apart. The community, still in shock, began to process the tragedy. Friends, family, and neighbors were left to pick up the pieces of their shattered lives. For Tamika's family, the pain was unbearable. They had warned everyone. They had begged for help, but no one had acted fast enough. They had been forced to watch as the justice system struggled to protect Tamika and her family. Nikita Bruce, Tamika's mother, later spoke out, her words heavy with grief and frustration. "We told them. We told the authorities what he was capable of, but they didn't listen. Now 2 lives are gone because of that."
Hurt, upset, angry.
Timothy Pullins is still processing that his 29-year-old daughter was murdered.
I cried. I didn't know what to do.
Tamika Pullins was shot and killed last Friday at this apartment on Columbia Drive in DeKalb County. Police say her estranged husband, William Arnold, pulled the trigger, hitting Tamika and a 7-year-old little girl.
All she wanted to do was leave this man.
Pullins says these police reports filed by his daughter show that. The first one dating back to New Year's Day this year. In it, police describe Arnold getting upset when his estranged wife did not laugh at his jokes, striking her with the gun and cutting her forehead. Another report months later in April detailing an incident when Arnold allegedly pushed open a bedroom window and stuck his head inside.
On June the 6th, he came to the house again. Got in the house and had a gun to her head.
This is very unfortunate.
Chantel Wright is with the Atlanta Victim Assistance and Incorporated. She encourages anyone dealing with domestic violence to create a safety plan.
Making sure that when you park your car in the evenings, that it's full of gas. Moving from one apartment to the other, sometimes it's moving out of state.
Pullins says his daughter explored some of those very options, but he tells us in the end, she thought calling 911 would protect her.
But just as soon as the police held 2 bodies down, they rushing. 15 to 20 police cars, helicopters, K9s. What was all of this before? They did not do enough to save my daughter.
And we reached out to the DeKalb County Police Department for comment. So far, we have not heard back. Meantime, the family has a GoFundMe account to help.
But Tamika's case is not an isolated incident, and the statistics surrounding domestic violence across the nation paint a grim picture of the scale of this issue. Every year, millions of people are impacted by domestic violence in its many forms: physical, emotional, psychological, and SA. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 1 in 4 women and 1 in 9 men experience severe intimate partner physical violence, intimate partner contact sexual violence, or intimate partner stalking with injury during their lifetime. The numbers are staggering and alarming. Every minute, nearly 20 people in the United States are physically abused by an intimate partner. That translates to more than 10 million victims annually. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have experienced some form of physical violence, stalking, or psychological aggression by an intimate partner. However, it is the victims who leave their abusers that face the most acute danger. Studies show that leaving an abuser increases the risk of violence. In fact, research from the National Domestic Violence Hotline indicates that 70% of women who were murdered by their intimate partner were killed after they tried to leave. In many cases, the escape from an abuser is often followed by a period of increased danger. Domestic violence escalates after the victim leaves, with the abuser seeking to reclaim control through violence or intimidation. This period, known as the danger zone, is the most critical and often the most deadly. In fact, women who leave an abusive relationship are 5 times more likely to be murdered by their abuser than those who remain in the relationship. Tamika Pullen's case tragically mirrors the reality that many victims face after leaving their abusers. She had taken the legal steps to protect herself, had moved to a new apartment, and was trying to rebuild her life with her niece, Dior. But even those steps were not enough to shield her from the violence that had been brewing. The statistics highlight an important truth. The danger does not disappear when a victim leaves. It intensifies. However, the lack of resources and support for victims of domestic violence is another contributing factor to this systemic failure. More than 70% of domestic violence survivors report having difficulty finding shelters that are equipped to help them, and fewer than half of the survivors receive the help they need from law enforcement or the legal system. However, there is hope. Victims of domestic violence can and do survive, and with the right support systems in place, they can rebuild their lives. The community must come together to ensure that victims of domestic violence are heard, protected, and supported. The legal system must act faster. The police must be better equipped to intervene in domestic violence situations, and society must create safe spaces for victims to turn to without fear of being ignored or abandoned. As the story of Tamika Pullen's and Dior Scott teaches us, justice must be swift, and we must do more to protect those who seek to escape abusive relationships before it's too late. Tamika and Dior's story is not just a tragedy. It is a call to action, a reminder that we must do more to prevent domestic violence, to protect those who are vulnerable, and to ensure that no more lives are lost because the system failed to act in time. We need to listen to the victims and act when they speak. Every warning matters, and every red flag must be taken seriously. So, what do you think about this case? What do you think could have been done differently to prevent this tragedy? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. We read every single one of them and value your perspective. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more true crime stories like this one. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next video. Cheers.